But I do want to move on to what is one of the highlights of the Premier's Awards for Outstanding Cancer Research every year. It's the chance to learn a bit more about one of the great researchers in the room. In the past, we've heard from Ian Fraser, Sir Gustav Nossel, and now before the Minister presents our final award, it's a thrill to have the opportunity to chat with our next guest, who we met briefly earlier this evening. She is no stranger to winning awards. She has received, amongst other honours, the 2007 Premier's Award for New South Wales Cancer Research Fellow, a 2008 New South Wales Young Tall Poppy Award for Science. She was the inaugural Ruth Stevens Garney Medalist for Human Genetics in 2008 through the Australian Academy of Science. She was made an Adjunct Professor of Biology from Penn State University in 2008. A year after, received an Australian-American Fulbright Professional Scholarship and was appointed Conjoint Professor of Medicine for the University of New South Wales in 2010. Her work has included investigating the significant role Southern Africa has to play in defining not only the extent of human diversity, but our potential to use gene discovery to battle disease. This work has led Dr. Hayes to leading a team to sequence the first Indigenous named African genomes, being that of Archbishop Desmond Tutu and Bushmen from the Kalahari Desert in Namibia. Her work to crack the DNA code and define the genetic diversity of Indigenous people in Southern Africa was the first of its kind and helps to unlock the story of disease and cancer in us all, but in particular in people from that part of the world. Ambitious, but certainly not impossible for a woman who, against the American national average of 3 to 7 years, completed her postdoctoral research project in 3 months. Which reminds me of that famous Australian saying, "Pull your head in, pal. No one likes an overachiever." But anyway, she is currently Professor of Genomics Medicine at the J.Craig Venter Institute in San Diego, and one of her best quotes for mine is simply, "Sleep is overrated." Please welcome back to the stage Professor Vanessa Hayes. As I mentioned earlier, Vanessa, you were on this stage in 2007. What were you working on at the time? What did you receive your award for?
At that time, I was working on prostate cancer, which is a topic my team still is researching. And we were looking at the risk, looking at the genetic profile of defining risk in prostate cancer in Australian men.
And in some ways, you hovered over last year's awards as well, one of the recipients last year?
Yes, so one of the recipients last year was one of the student awards, the Early Career Awards, and that was one of my PhD students, Elizabeth Tyndall.
So what took you from prostate cancer research in Australia to working in Africa?
Well, it all made sense to me. Prostate cancer is a disease that is very common, but it has the highest incidence and mortality rates in people with African ancestry. And really this has not been studied and not been utilised. It's highly aggressive in people that have an African ancestry and is very clearly linked to one's ethnic background, with people of Asian ancestry having the lowest incidence and mortality rate. So this is knowledge that we need to base our research on, because it tells us that there is a genetic or genomic profile that is linking these risk factors.
Is there essentially one type of prostate cancer, or is it far more complicated than that?
Far more complicated. And I think that was one of the frustrations in doing my research, is we had great resources here to work with in Australia. One of the best epidemiological resources in prostate cancer, and in many of the cancers, are actually here in Australia. The biggest problem with prostate cancer is, how do we define what type of prostate cancer an individual has? It's very difficult on the clinical level to do that, to define, has that person got an aggressive disease that's going to lead to death, or can you just leave it and they will live a long life? So we don't know how to classify prostate cancer. So the phenotype level is